Today we're gonna be covering Joji's production style. I will show you guys how you can achieve that dark, melancholic, lo-fi vibe that sounds a little bit like this. We're gonna get into the beat breakdown in a moment, but before we do, let's just think for a second what actually makes Joji's signature sound. Well, if we talk about the sonics on his latest album SMITHEREENS, I feel like it's safe to say that he is using a lot of piano samples, guitar loops, analog sounding bass lines, and synth sounds almost in every song. His production style has a lot of warmth to it, and that is achieved by adding organic textures to the background of all the other harmonic instruments. Drums in his production are very subtle and not so much upfront most of the time. Also, he's using a lot of live acoustic style drums for most of his songs, so I tried to keep all of that in mind when I was producing this beat in order to achieve results that are as close as possible to Joji's production. So without further ado, let's dive into the Ableton Live. Let's see what I came up with, shall we? So considering everything I told you before about Joji's production, I wanted to start my beat with a nice piano loop, so I went and searched for one, and I found this loop. It's from Kingsway Music Libraries. It's not exactly a piano loop, but when I've heard it, I was like, yo, this is a Joji vibe, and I kind of sticked with it. So the sample on its own would sound like this. That's pretty much it for the sample. I really feel like it fits the style that we are going for a lot, and to be honest, it was sounding really good the way it was originally, but I've just did a little bit of processing. I've added a bit of RC20 just to kind of distort the sample a little bit more. I've added a bit of wobble and the noise just to kind of really give the sample that vintage feel, you see what I mean? After I've added the transient shaper just to kind of control the peaks of the sample a little bit, because I felt like sometimes they're a bit too harsh, so that's for that pretty much. After, I've added this vinyl plugin, which is a free plugin from iZotope. It's a really simple kind of vinyl plugin, but I really like this warp feature over here. It's kind of messing with the pitch of the sample and it warps it a little bit, and I really like how it sounds. That's why I've added this plugin. And at the very end, I just have the Ableton's basic EQ to kind of cut some low end and some high end from the sample, okay? That's pretty much the processing for the main sample. After, I felt like I want to add a couple more melodical instruments, so I've added the lead sound and the pad sound. So for the lead sound, I'm using this Classify theme preset from the Prince. If you don't know, it's the synth that is made by Frank Dukes. It's a really great synth, go check it out. And the lead is sounding like this. After, as a next sound, I've added this pad, and again I've used the same Prince synth for the pad sound, and the preset is Adoption Benefit. It's here, and these are the chords that I played for the pad sound if some of you guys are interested. So the pad sound on its own would sound like this. To be honest, that's pretty much it for the melodic instruments. Just to mention, if you're wondering what are these lead and chords, those are the same exact chords and lead that I just showed you guys, because this Prince synth is really CPU heavy, so I prefer to print all of these heavy plugins into the audio and shut them off after. Like this, I save CPU. So the next up is the bass line. For the bass, I'm using this 40's very own Keys Contact library, and the preset is the Grand Synth Bass. Let me show you real quick how it sounds on its own. There you go, nothing too crazy for the bass. For me, the goal was to find that analog sounding kind of style bass, which fits really well with this Joji type of vibe that we're going for, because he's using a lot of these type of basses on his last album, I feel like. Let me just quickly play you all the melodic instruments together with the bass, but without the drums. Like this, you kind of get the sense of how everything sounds together. I know that it sounds a bit weird without the drums, but I promise you once the drums are there, it's all gonna make sense, okay? And speaking about the drums, let me play you the whole drum pattern that I came up with, and then I can kinda break it down to you layer by layer, okay? So the drums on its own, they would sound like this. There you go, nothing too crazy for the drums. Again, I kind of feel like the drums are here just to kind of support the melodic parts, you know, the drums are really not the main driving force of this beat, unlike the trap music for example, but still Joji's drums, they kind of always have this vintage warmth to it, so that was my goal, to really kind of make them sound lo-fi and acoustic and vintage. Hopefully I achieved that goal, so let me just start by showing you guys the kick. The kick is playing this very basic pattern, and that's the J Dilla kick from Splice, okay? Sounds like this. The kick drum just pretty much repeats the same pattern. It's very basic. I kind of mess a little bit with the velocity, but apart from that, I have nothing else that I've added to the kick, okay? Obviously, after the kick, I'm adding the snare drum, which is this basic kind of lo-fi filtered out snare. Together with the kick, it sounds like this. After I'm adding like 4 different types of hi-hats to the beat just to kind of make things a bit more interesting, kind of just to add a bit more bounce, okay? And all together it would sound like this. Super simple, nothing too crazy. I have a few like a lo-fi hi-hats and like a few live hi-hats that are acoustic ones, and I feel like they fit really well with each other. And just to kind of finish things up for the percussions, I've added the shaker, the open hi-hat, and this kind of weird rattle perk, and all together it would sound like this. And then at the very end, just to kind of push this feel of the vintage drums, I've added this Foley sound. It's basically a noise crackle, sounds like this on its own. There you go, those are all the drum sounds in the drum loop. Let me just play the drum loop one more time, like this we can move on to the other things, okay? To be honest with you guys, that's pretty much it for the beat. I showed you all the drum sounds, I showed you all the melodical parts, the bass line, that's it. That's pretty simple beat, to be honest. Let me know if I didn't cover something that you would like to know and I did not talk about. Feel free to leave the comment. Usually I respond all my comments because at this point I just don't get so much of them, you know. So let me just play you a full beat one more time, and I hope you guys learned something from this video. If not, hopefully you had good time watching the video. My name is Almostxfamous. Thank you for coming through. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.